Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm here with West London Sports' Ian McCullough and Ben Kosky, and of course, former QPR striker Kevin Gallen. We're filming this the day after QPR's 3-1 defeat to Rotherham. Obviously, failed to make it back-to-back wins after a 4-1 win over Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. I just want to start by talking about the team selection last night. Certainly, Mark Warburton, I think, sprung a few surprises when I saw that one. Obviously, Ilias Chair and Chris Willock left on the bench. Charlie Kelman, George Thomas, Nico Hamalainen, all in from the start. Obviously, didn't work out. You know, they lost the game quite comfortably in the end by 2 goals. But Kev, when you saw the team selection, obviously it's kind of easy for us to sit here now and say, you know, he got it wrong because of the result. But were you quite pleased to see the young lads like George Thomas and Charlie Kelman have a bit? He's shown a bit of faith in them, and the young lads have been given a go to see what they can do.
Well, I was quite pleased because after our discussion last week, and Ian was saying about he saw Charlie Kelman live and he looked like a good prospect, and I was pleased to see him get a start because at the end of the day, we're not going to get promoted. We're not going down. So this is now, I think, the manager looks like he's, especially for last night, to give these young players who haven't really started. Well, Charlie Kelman's his first start. So let's see what they can do. I thought he had a decent game. Charlie Kelman done one really good, turn and shot in the first half. George Thomas done all right. They've done all right. I mean, it's a difficult one for the manager. He's obviously looking towards next season now and trying to give those lads a little bit of game time. But then on the flip side, you win 4-1 on Saturday, and the players that played will probably be disappointed that they don't start again. So it's a difficult one. And if it were me personally, and I was a player, I would want to play. If I was Willock or Chair, I'd be disappointed about not playing because when you're a player, you just want to play every game and get out there and show people what you can do. But it'll be interesting to see what happens on Saturday. Whether or not he'll go back to Chair and Willock, or he'll give Kelman another start and George Thomas another start in a home match.
I'm sure that.
It's away middle.
Away. So it'd be interesting. I'd say he'd go back to Chair and Willock. That's what I'd think. I mean, we went 1-0 up, and I thought, here we go, Lyndon Dykes. I mean, it's amazing what a few goals can do for your confidence. Because a month ago, we probably wouldn't even controlled that ball, let alone get a shot in. And he's controlled it, and he hasn't even looked, and he's just smashed it into the corners. Absolutely great. That's what happens when you get confidence in a striker, and he's very confident at the moment. And he looked good. So I've got well done for him because he has got a bit of stick over the last 3 or 4 months, and deservedly, because he hasn't been playing well. And when you're a footballer, you have to take the rough with the smooth. And if you're not playing well, you've got to you are going to get criticism. And he's overcame that, and that shows a good mentality where other players might have crumbled and thought, well, I'm going to have to wait till next season. But he's having a good, strong end to the season. So well played to him. But the goals we give away were poor. The first one is a really poor goal.
Ian's obviously spoke a lot about the kind of left-sided troubles, haven't you, about Nico and everything going on there, and you must have been tearing your hair out left watching that one, seeing the left-sided disorganisation pretty much that led to those goals.
I think for me, it's probably up there with the most disappointing results of the season, just because you win that, you go 9th, and that's a brilliant kind of achievement really for everything that where they were, etc. And you go 1-0 up, you should really close the game out. I think George Thomas did really well when he came off the bench against Sheffield Wednesday Saturday, so he deserved his start. And Ilias Chair took a nasty bang to the back of the ankle, so I wonder if that was a factor in Warburton's thinking, because there is obviously a trip to Borough on Saturday, and and we discussed Kelman last week, so why not give him a run, see how he goes. So I don't think either of those decisions really kind of contributed to Rangers not winning the game. But as Kevin alluded to, the defending Hamalainen, I mean, I don't want to kind of rake over old coals. He just doesn't look good enough, unfortunately. And you don't want to be all hysterical and sort of hand the bloke out to dry. But really, he just it's like playing with 10 men sometimes with him. He just doesn't want to get involved. He's a wing back who doesn't want to cross the halfway line. You can have wing backs who aren't great defenders, but they offer a threat going forward. Well, he doesn't offer a threat going forward, and he doesn't really look like he can defend either. And I think one thing that this coaching staff have done is players have improved. Chris Willock has improved as the season's gone on. Don Ball has improved from what he was last season as a player. You've seen Lyndon Dykes sort of hit a bit of form, but he's not doing things that he was doing earlier in the season, which he didn't need to do. He's improved. And you think Hammerline, he's had 10 games where he hasn't really featured, and you think, well, all right, let's see if you've got any better. Have you done any? And he just doesn't look like he wants to be there. And he's even got the stage where players aren't passing to him. Johan Barbai getting the ball and there's no outlook for him, so he's just ignoring. Where is he? You can't see him. You look at on the screen going, well, where is he? Where's the wing back? Where's the wing back? He's not there. And you see him pop up in the middle of midfield and you're like, what are you doing there? I don't know if that's a tactic. I don't know. But, Rangers, the way they play, they're so reliant on wing backs. And, Lee Wallace is, he's made, I think, 3 or 4 assists in the last 5 games. And he's been an important player on that side of the field. And him not being there last night, it was really noticeable. You wouldn't have said that 6 months ago, would you? Lee Wallace, him not being there is a reason Rangers didn't win. But yeah, just the second goal was poor, wasn't it? Just a routine ball over the top, and they've all put their hands up waiting for offside. And it's
goal in because they haven't gone with the runner. They're all lifting their hands up, far back 5 yards deeper than the other 3. So he either needs to push up and get in the same line, or the lads have to go with the runner and run with him instead of just playing lazy and putting your hand up.
And that one was lazy. And they've played that line pretty well in recent weeks. They caught a lot of teams offside, but it's just offside. It's about communication, isn't it? Knowing everyone is and stepping up as a unit, etc. All the old cliches, but it's just bad goal. And that Michael Smith, when he came on, they didn't really know how to deal with him. He was a handful. They played him in the home game, and he was a handful again last night. And yeah, I mean, really, they were very good against Sheffield Wednesday, but last night, fair play to Rotherham. They needed to win, and they made good subs, and they won the game. So, but very disappointing. Chance to go 9th, and you blow it when you're 1-0 up against a team that hasn't won at home for 10, 12 games. It's disappointing.
I think one of the things that really stood out there, Ian, was you mentioned the absence of Lee Wallace. And I think another aspect of that was I just felt there was a complete lack of leadership on the pitch after the first Rotherham goal went in. You're looking for people, experienced players, to settle everyone down, get them back into their rhythm and so on. And I really didn't see any of that. And Wallace is one who you would expect to do that role. Jeff Cameron, when he plays, is another. And that was really quite alarming to me, because that's something, if you go back a couple of years, you would have said there's no leaders on the field. And I felt certainly that last half hour, we didn't see any leaders. If anything, I would say Lyndon Dykes was possibly the only leader out there, which again is quite something, given that we were obviously, a lot of people have been questioning his place in the team for until very recently. So that I think was a big concern. And again, someone like Wallace, I think, and Cameron, we've spoken about before, I think you can't underestimate the qualities that those experienced heads can bring.
Yeah, I think they missed Device as well. Him going off, with a broken nose, that was another, thanks to Nico Hammerline and, bottling out a headed challenge. He took one for the team and broke his nose as a result of it. But he was, because he's done well, Device. I don't think they would have had half the joy they had physically in the second half of Rotherham had he, played the whole game.
Regarding, I think it's your original question, Dan, I think it's a missed opportunity to get into 9th and progress as in league position for next year. I mean, we've got how many games left? It's still a possibility we can get in that top 10, but Rotherham, I feel we're there for the taking. They ain't a great team. I think it's a missed opportunity to get to that 9th position and hopefully try and stay there and be in the top 10. And you think, well, we made a progress from last season where we finished, what was it, 12, 13, I can't remember, was it 13? Yeah. And considering you've lost Eze, your best player, probably your second best player being Osei Samuel, and centre forwards wise, Hugel and Naki Wells. So that would have been to get in the top 10 is still a possibility, but that's a good achievement for QPR, considering where we were in December.
So do we start obviously looking to head to next season now? Like you say, Kevin, I mean, that mid-table finish seems kind of nailed on now. Whether they can get in the top half is sort of the question that remains this season. But I thought it'd be quite interesting to look at where the team most needs to improve going into next season. If it comes to them wanting to push for promotion, which hopefully should be the target after a couple of years of sort of mid-table stability. So I've been looking particularly for some stats. Been doing some digging. Found some ones out that I think might be of interest that kind of show where the team's maybe doing quite well and where they're sort of struggling and where they can improve next season. So I'll start with the kind of attacking stuff that I found, and we'll come to you first, Kev, obviously for obvious reasons. So they're 11th in goals scored with 48, 5th for expected goals. I know that's obviously quite a new stat that's come out, different opinions of it. I can see Kev laughing, so maybe not a big expected goals fan.
I still don't know how to work that out, to be honest.
But they're 9th most for shots on target, but they're only 12th for goals per shot. So, I mean, those stats aren't bad, are they? Those attacking stats are in the top half for those, which is pretty positive. But, I mean, my kind of takeaway from looking through those stats and some others that I found was that they should be scoring more goals than they are. Their general play warrants them scoring more goals. And I think that comes back to the kind of central striker issue that they've had this season, where they've not had a consistent goal scorer throughout the length of the year, because Austin came in and scored. Now he's gone out through suspension. Yeah. Dykes didn't score for 20 games. Now he's got 5 and 5. And if they're going to progress next season, that has to be something that improves, doesn't it?
It would be interesting to see if you could have done up to Christmas and then Christmas.
I think it's real 50-50, isn't it? Like, yeah.
I always feel that it's a difficult one because managers always come on after maybe they've lost, and I understand what they're saying. He goes, "Oh, we've got to take our chances. We've missed chances. We should have scored then. Goals do change games." But if the striker takes all his chances all the time, no disrespect, he's going to be playing in the Champions League. That's the level. Do you know what I mean? If Dykes scores every chance, he's going to be £20 million into the Premier League. So that's sort of the level where we are at the moment. The better players and the better teams and the better strikers convert more of their chances than the other players. I find it a difficult, a strange one where, you know, managers say that. It's not real true, is it? You mean, even the best strikers don't convert but they have a higher ratio than the poorer strikers.
I suppose the issue this year is that, like, Dykes and Bon especially, I can think of a few off the top of my head, they have missed some big chances that you would expect the vast majority of strikers to score, and that's hold them back ultimately this year.
Like 6 weeks ago, like I said just before, he wouldn't have scored. He wouldn't even been able to control that ball, that cross. That's how out of form he was and how his confidence. Last night, his confidence flying. The ball comes into him. He takes a touch and he doesn't even look at the goal and he bangs it straight in. And that's a player in confidence. I think, you know, the header he scored on Saturday, excellent, the first goal. I mean, it's a header sort of out of the blue. That's a really hard chance to score. So that's a man who's on confidence is flying at the moment. So his chance ratio now is probably, last night, how many chances did he have? I mean, even the goal he scored wasn't a brilliant chance. It was like a half chance. The header he scored against Sheffield Wednesday, the first one, wasn't like a sitter. If he missed it, you would say, well, he was like 18 yards out and he scores a header. So his chance ratio has gone right up. 6 weeks ago, it would have been, like, he wouldn't even score over 4 chances.
I think ultimately, though, I mean, do you agree that is one of the main factors? Because like I said, those attacking stats aren't bad at all. They're in the top half. But if you want to really push into that top 6, they've got to have that guy that you can rely on to consistently score goals, whether that's Charlie Austin, whether Dykes continues this run into next year or not. If they don't have that, it's hard to envisage them really progressing from the season.
Well, if Dykes goes into the Euros and scores goals like that, he probably won't be here next year.
Didn't think you'd be saying that a month or two ago.
Well, that's the reality. He could, I'm not saying he will, but he could have a great Euros with Scotland. He seems to be their main number 9. He scores 2 or 3 goals in that tournament. it's like the price tag goes up, someone puts a bid in. See ya. Who are we going to, whatever. So, but Charlie Austin, his chance, to be fair, his chance ratio of scoring is pretty good, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we'll look at the other end of the pitch and defensively. There's been a lot said about defensive improvement this season, and I think we've touched on it as well. But when you look at the stats, it does suggest that there is quite a lot of room for improvement still. They've conceded the 9th most in the league at 50. And you look at all the teams above them, they're all majority teams that are right down there at the bottom, struggling to stay up, which doesn't bode too well. They've faced the 4th most shots on target against them. Seny Dieng, who's been in goal most of the year, 3rd most saves in goal. Bottom half a clean sheet percentage. All these stats add up and suggest that there is a lot of room for defensive improvement, I think. And Ian, I mean, we've spoken on here before about Rob Dickey's impact and the defensive improvement, especially since January. I think if you did these stats from January, like Kev said, they'd tell a different story. But do you feel like he's found the right balance in defence now that they can go on and improve if they can keep this together next year? Or do you feel like there is still a lot of room for improvement that needs to happen for this team to challenge for promotion?
Yeah, definitely. I think, they got, I mean, it's Dickey's first season at this level. He's done very well this season. He probably didn't have a very good game last night. And he wasn't great against Nottingham Forest either. They've, let in 6 goals in the last 3 games. 7 goals last 3 games. But, yeah, I mean, they need to find 2 wing backs, don't they, for a start? I'd imagine that Cameron won't be here next year. Barbay's been solid enough. They got Masterson coming back. I mean, I guess then again, do you sign DeVries? I think DeVries has done pretty well. They've got to make a decision. Do they sign him? I mean, if they sign him, I think he's an instant upgrade on, perhaps Cameron and, possibly Barbay as well. But, yeah, I mean, but it's all like midfield as well. There's plenty of questions. I mean, you are where you are, aren't you? They're mid-table for goals and they're mid-table for kind of clean sheets and goals conceded. It's it is what it is. But it's, as we said before, like, it's all about, are you showing improvement on year? If they can finish above where they finished last year and in the top 10, you improve. And then you look at it and say, well, it's obvious what we need to sign and what we need to get. But, can you get a couple of good young wing backs on loan or pick them up from the lower leagues? That's got to be the starting point for any transfer business, I think. Start from there. You've got the fundamentals of a decent spine with the goalkeeper, a couple of decent centre halves. If you keep hold of Dykes, who now seems to have developed into if Lyndon Dykes could get 15 goals this season, as Kev says, and could score 4 goals for Scotland in the Euros, and all of a sudden he could be a £15 million striker. £2 million, whatever he costs, doesn't buy you much anymore. I mean, Britta Sumbalonga at Middlesbrough cost £15 million. They're going to release him on a free transfer at the end of the season, they announced the other day. If he scores 15 goals in a season, do we say that Dykes had has he been a success?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Definitely. If he does. Even now, with scoring 10, I'm pretty much turned it round. I think for a first season, 10, if he gets another 2 or 3, I think he's a success, really.
I'm going to make a comparison there as well. If we going back about 20 years, and I'm not sure of the exact figure, but if you look at how many goals Peter Crouch scored in his only season with QPR, something like 11, 12 maybe. He then went on to £1 million moves straight away. Obviously had a fantastic career at the top level, played for Liverpool, Spurs, England, went to World Cups, etc. But you look at the bare statistics of his one season at QPR, it's probably about the same number of goals as Lyndon Dykes has got now. So, it's sometimes about hitting form at the right time. And I think just coming to attention at the right time. And that, I think, is what Kevin's saying with Lyndon Dykes going into the Euros. He could just be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
To make the headlines.
And I think if he comes through this as well, Dykes, the stick he's got and the Barron run, etc., etc. But he's always kept his head up, kept trying. That's only going to be good for next season, isn't it? Because you know, that mental strength to get through it and go through it. And next season, when crowds are back, he could see a completely different player. So, and also, you know, he's moved down from Scotland. COVID, there's no team building. You're not going out for, you know, drinks with your teammates or dinners, and you can't do any of that. You can't do so. Really, you're coming down, you know, to a new city, new country with your family, and that. There's all these other factors that go into why it takes a signing, you know, sometimes to kind of find their feet, and perhaps that's been that with Dykes as well. But
yeah, I think obviously his turnaround has been incredible, hasn't it? And it does bode really well going into next season. And obviously, when I read these stats out, the attacking and the defensive ones, like Kev said, it'd be interesting to see compare the first half of the year with the second half of the year stats. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything that would do that. But I think the turnaround for the team as well as Dykes has just been incredible. So with that in mind, and you know, we like to have fun on this YouTube channel. So I've got a question to pose to all of you, a hypothetical question. If with the loan players coming in and the difference they've made, if you're only able to keep one of them at the club going into next season, who would you choose? And I'm going to start with Ben.
Well, I'm going to surprise you probably, because I'm going to say Georgie Device. That would be my choice.
That is a surprise.
Yeah. Austin, I think, would be the romantic choice, of course. It's the one that fans would want to keep to stay. Personally, I don't think it's realistic. And for me, as Ian said before, Device has just made a very big difference at the back. He's got that physical presence. We haven't really seen a run of games from him, unfortunately, because he's had injury problems. But I think he definitely represents an upgrade. And it goes back to what I was saying about leadership as well. I think you always need someone who looks a leader at the back, and he does, to me. I think I'm discounting Sam Field in a sense, because I think that's pretty much a done deal. I think he will be staying come what may. Yeah, for me, that's the one player that I think would make the biggest difference if they can sign him.
Ian, something tells me you're not going to go with Geordie Davies like Ben has. Am I right?
I'm not arguing. I'm not disagreeing with anything he says. You know, I think they should sign him, but just for the sake of a point of difference, I think I agree with Sam Field as well. I really like Sam Field, but say he is already signed, I'd probably say Johansson. And that's, you know, I like Austin. I think he's done really well, but you know, I don't know if Kevin will agree with me on this, but there's an element that some of Johansson's play of what Wilkins used to do. I'm not saying he's not in Wilkins' league, don't get me wrong, but just that ability just to kind of, he's like a technician. You know, he sees things that other players don't. He just, the little reverse passes.
He seems, he calms it down. Because his technique and his touch and his vision is very good. He always seems to have time on the ball, which Ray Wilkins always. Someone said years ago, Ray Wilkins could find space in a matchbox. Like, you know what I mean? He was just so relaxed and composed. Regarding your question, Ben, I mean, the fans' choice is Austin, and that would be, it's a good signing because it gives the fan base such a boost, especially hopefully when the crowds come back in August. But for me, I would go Johansson because I just think he's a quality player. He's fit. He's got a good few years left in him. His consistency since he's been here. I mean, I don't think he's been lower than a 7 out of 10. Really, he's just a good player, and he can see passes. He can release the ball at the right time. He's just a good all-round player. And the only problem is Fulham get relegated, and which they're struggling at the moment. They might want to keep him.
Yeah. So when I did this, my original thing was to say Charlie Austin because of the change he made into the attack. I mean, you saw straight away the impact he had when he came in, scored quite a few goals in his first few games. But I think with Lyndon Dykes turning it around now, I think it all hinges on that, doesn't it? So I think I'd be inclined to actually go with you two and say Johansson because he's brought so much calm into that midfield. and his range of passing, like we said, is absolutely incredible. And I think before him, they didn't really have anyone at all that could do what Johansson did. And I don't know if you remember, we did a video probably in January or December, basically saying that they need to strengthen the midfield going into the January transfer window and how important that was. And they did it with a high quality player in Johansson, and it made a huge difference. So I think it's probably a good shout to go with him over Austin. But I don't know. It's a lot on Dykes, isn't it? I think.
I will say about Austin, though, he's done very well on the field, but I do think the lift he's given the club, the players.
Absolutely.
Before his arrival, you didn't really hear players on the field talking, and that certainly changed since
he definitely talks. Yeah, you can say that again.
He's almost like he brought players out of their shell. Rob Dickie now is a lot more vociferous than he was. He's quite tight with Austin, and I think he gives the club a bit of a profile as well. If they said there was hiding Austin, I wouldn't be upset. But just for the argument's sake, I would say Johansson. But Austin brings. I think he does bring a lot more than just goals to the squad. But depends how much money he wants, how long he wants. That all these other factors do matter. But
in an ideal world, they bring in all of them, all four. That would be, I think, would be perfect, wouldn't it? I mean, obviously we spoke about Deweese and his injury problems, but I think he's still very worth a signing because from what we've seen on him so far, he looks a really solid defender. So it would just be on whether he can keep fit pretty much. So yeah, hopefully they can't just sign one because that would be a bit of a decision for them to make. But yeah,
I think you're right, Dan. Obviously, the ideal would be to bring them all in, but I'd just like to come back and sort of partially explain the reason I've said Device is I think they don't have anyone else in the squad who can do the job he does. And one thing I think I've mentioned before, and much as I admire Johansson, I think he's been a perfect fit and he's great to watch. I'm just going to point out again, they do have a player who does, I think, do a similar role in Tom Carroll.
No, they don't. Tom Carroll is nowhere near as good as Johansson.
No. Not saying he's as good as Johansson. I'm saying he performs a similar role, and that is why in the scheme of things, and particularly if Johansson is too costly, they might look at that and think, well, we can get by with this alternative. Not saying that's the right view, but
I suppose they got Amos coming back as well. You can't rule out. You forget about Amos as well.
He had a shot on goal in the games he played.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, it's so long ago, Ian, none of us remember that.
So on to our predictions then. Coming up against the former QPR manager in Neil Warnock this weekend. Kevin, what are you seeing in this one?
If they play the same team they did last night, I don't think we'll get a result. I think we'll lose. But if he goes back to a team similar with Wallace playing left wing back and Willock in chair, I would say we would win. So I think he will go back to that team. So I'm going to say 2-1 QPR, being positive.
Yeah, Ben, we'll come on to you after your absolute horror show last week.
Win loads, win big, then lose. We did it one big, lost big against Forest, one big against Sheffield Wednesday.
That's true, yeah.
So I'm thinking,
up and down.
There's a sequence here.
Yeah. And what are you saying after your absolute horror show from last week when you predicted that QPR would lose to?
Well, I thought you
learnt your lesson.
Wouldn't remind me of that. Well, absolutely. Look, I can't possibly go for another defeat because then I'll get a terrible reputation. I do think they'll improve on last night. Middlesbrough kind of faded out of the playoff picture. I don't think they've won in their last 4. With that said, I don't know. I also look at sequences and I think because Rangers won their last season, can they do it 2 years in a row? I'm not so sure. So I'm going to sit on the fence, go for 1-1.
Ian?
Yeah, I think it'll be a draw. I'm going to go 1-1 as well.
Yeah, I think with Neil Warnock, he loves a solid, scrappy draw, doesn't he? I think against his former club as well. I'm sure that'll add a bit of an incentive to him, even though he's got happy memories there. I think should be a feisty affair. I actually might go 0-0, so that's Could be as bad as Ben's prediction, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, remember to subscribe to the channel and leave the video a like, and we'll be back again soon.